This is Max and Mia podcast.
Have you ever stopped and thought, why is it so hard to actually get better at English? You study, you practice, you put in the time, and yet somehow it feels like you're going nowhere, like you're stuck in the same place, no matter what you do.
If that sounds familiar, stay with us. Because today, we think you're going to find some real answers.
Welcome back to Max and Mia podcast. I'm Max.
And I'm Mia. Really glad you're here with us today.
For those of you who are new here, this is a podcast made for English learners. Every episode, we bring you conversations, stories, and practical content to help you move forward in the language.
And today's episode is one we're genuinely excited about. We really think it's going to resonate with a lot of you, whatever stage you're at right now.
We put a lot of thought into this one, and we believe it's going to make a real difference. So without further delay, let's hand things over to Matthew and Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Good to have you here.
Really good to be back. This is an episode I've been looking forward to for a while, partly because it's something I went through myself. So let's get right into it.
Let's start with the question Max brought up. Why do I feel stuck? Why does it seem like no matter how much I study, my English just isn't moving forward?
First thing we want you to know, if you feel that way, there is nothing wrong with you. This happens to almost every learner at some point, and it even has a name.
It's called the intermediate plateau.
This is the stage where the vast majority of learners start to feel frustrated. They're putting in the work, but the results just don't seem to reflect that effort. And there's a very clear reason why this happens.
Think back to when you first started. Progress was almost immediate. In a matter of months, you went from knowing next to nothing to holding basic conversations. Every week felt like a step forward.
But at the intermediate level, you've already built the foundation. What you're picking up now is far more subtle. Grammar exceptions, idiomatic expressions, nuance, tone, vocabulary that doesn't appear in beginner textbooks. That kind of progress is much harder to see day by day.
The jumps are smaller, but they go much deeper. And because you can't measure them as easily, it feels like nothing is moving. That is the plateau.
Now, there's a second reason this stage feels so tough. It has to do with the gap between your passive skills and your active skills.
Passive skills are reading and listening. Active skills are speaking and writing. And for most people at this level, the passive side is considerably stronger.
You can follow a conversation, read an article, watch something in English and catch most of it. But the moment you have to produce something on your own, the words just don't come the way you'd like them to.
You know what you want to say. The idea is there, but something gets lost between the thought and the sentence. That's one of the defining challenges of this stage, and it's exactly what we want to address today. So let's start with the skill that matters most to a lot of people out there. And I'll be honest, it's the one that matters most to me personally, speaking.
It's also the one that causes the most anxiety. People can read, they can listen, they can write to some extent, but speaking feels like a completely different challenge altogether.
So why is it so hard to improve even when you're putting in the effort? A big part of it comes down to this. When you listen or read, your brain is receiving and storing the language, but speaking requires you to retrieve it, build a sentence, and deliver it in real time, all at once. That's a completely different cognitive process.
And there's also the fear factor. A lot of learners avoid speaking because they're afraid of making mistakes, of not sounding right, of being judged, so they hold back. And the less you practice, the harder it feels. It becomes a cycle that's difficult to break out of.
The good news is that improving your speaking is not only possible, it's more accessible than most people think. And once you find the right approach, it can actually be quite enjoyable. So let's get into it.
The first thing we want to add to your daily routine is what we call the warm-up. At least one tongue twister a day.
Now, before you roll your eyes, tongue twisters are not going to expand your vocabulary. They won't help you think faster in English, and they won't teach you how to build better sentences. But they're incredibly useful for something else entirely: muscle memory.
Your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords have spent your entire life moving in the patterns of your native language. English demands physical positions that may simply not exist in your mother tongue. Tongue twisters train exactly that, the mechanics of producing English sounds correctly and fluidly.
Let's do a couple right now. Repeat after us and pay attention to what we tell you about each one, because the how matters just as much as the practice itself.
The first one targets two sounds that tend to trip people up together, the th and the r. To get the th right, you need to place the tip of your tongue lightly between your teeth and push air through. Not a T, not an F. Tongue between the teeth, air out. And then you've got the R right after it, which in English is much softer than in Spanish or other languages. Don't trill it. Let it sit at the back of your mouth. Ready? Here we go. 3 thrilling thinkers thoughtfully through 3 thick, thorny threads.
Good. Again, a little faster this time. 3 thrilling thinkers thoughtfully through 3 thick, thorny threads.
Now, the second one, and this is the one we really want you to take seriously. A huge number of English learners pronounce the th sound as a d or s. So the becomes d, or think becomes sink. It's one of the most common pronunciation mistakes out there, and this tongue twister is basically the cure. Same rule applies. Tongue between the teeth, gentle airflow, don't force it. The 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday.
One more time. The 33 thieves thought that they thrilled the throne throughout Thursday.
If that felt uncomfortable, that's actually a good sign. It means you're working muscles your mouth isn't used to using. Keep at it. That discomfort is exactly where the improvement lives. Okay, how did those go? Keep at it. Even one a day makes a real difference. Now, the next method is one I personally love, and once you become aware of it, you'll start hearing it everywhere. It's called connected speech.
Native speakers almost never pronounce each word separately with a clean pause in between. Instead, they blend the end of one word with the beginning of the next. Everything flows together, and that's a big reason why natural English can be so hard to follow at first.
To practice this, here's what we recommend. Ask your AI of choice and give it this exact prompt. Act as my English pronunciation coach. Write a B1 to B2 level paragraph designed to practice connected speech. Then just add whatever topic interests you.
And if you'd rather not use AI, that's fine too. Any article or text online works, but the AI prompt gives you something tailored to your level, which is why we prefer it.
We tried it ourselves with the topic of history. Listen carefully as we read it.
In history, people often think about kings, wars, and great discoveries. But history is also about ordinary people and their everyday lives. Over time, small decisions made by millions of people can change the direction of a country. For example, when new ideas spread from one place to another, they can slowly transform societies. That is why historians try to understand not only what happened, but also why it happened and how people felt at the time.
Now let's break down what's actually happening in that paragraph. And we want to be specific here because just showing you the linked version without explaining why it sounds that way doesn't really help.
Let's start with think about. If you say those two words separately, you get a small stop between them. Think about. But when you speak naturally, the K at the end of think doesn't release into silence. It pushes directly into the vowel that opens about. The result sounds like the two words have merged into one unit. There's no moment where one ends and the other begins.
Then there's wars and. This one's interesting because of what happens to the S at the end of wars. In English, when a word ends in S after a vowel sound, that S actually becomes a Z. So wars already ends in a Z. And when that Z is followed by a word starting with a vowel, like and, the two sounds blend completely. Your mouth never stops moving. It goes straight from the Z into the A of and without any interruption.
Over time works differently. Both words end and start with vowels. And in English, vowel-to-vowel transitions are always smooth. There's no consonant to create a natural break. So the voice just glides from the R of over into the T of time, with no gap at all. It almost sounds like one long word.
Spread from is a case of what's called a stop consonant. The D at the end of spread is a sound the mouth forms but doesn't fully release before jumping to the F of from. So instead of hearing spread from with two separate beats, you hear the D absorbed almost silently into the transition. The two words arrive as one movement.
And then felt at the time. This is a great example of what's called a flap T, something very typical in American English. The T at the end of felt and the T at the beginning of at don't both get pronounced. They collapse into a single soft tap, almost like a D sound. So instead of felt at, what you actually hear is closer to felta. The two words share one consonant and keep moving forward.
So here's how to practice all of this. Read the paragraph once, slowly, paying attention to where each word ends and the next one begins. Then read the second time and consciously try to apply what we just explained. Let consonants carry into vowels. Let vowels glide into each other. Don't release stops before moving on. And on the third read, don't think about any of it. Just speak at a natural pace and let your mouth do what it's been training to do. 3 rounds and you'll hear the difference yourself.
And the third tool for your speaking is one we've mentioned quite a few times on this podcast already, so we'll keep it brief. Shadowing. We keep bringing it up for one reason. It works.
The idea is simple. Listen to someone speak in English and repeat immediately after them, mimicking their rhythm, their intonation, their pace. And the best part is you don't need any extra material. You can do it right here with us. So next time, don't just listen passively. Repeat what you hear. Copy the way we say it.
All right, now let's move on to the other active skill, writing. And this one is tough, probably the most neglected of them all, partly because, let's be honest, almost nobody actually writes anymore.
Between voice messages, short texts, and social media, most of us barely put together a complete sentence in writing, even in our own language, which is exactly why practicing it in English is so valuable.
And before you picture essays or formal reports, stop right there. We're not asking for any of that. All we're suggesting is this. Write about your day. What happened, how you felt, something that caught your attention. Simple, personal, real.
It'll take you 10 minutes, maybe 5 to start. But when you write, you're forced to search for words you don't yet have, to construct ideas, to organize your thoughts. That process is one of the most effective ways to expand your vocabulary because the gaps you encounter are uniquely yours.
Here's the challenge. Do it every day for 15 days. At the end, go back and read your very first entry. In just 15 days, you will see a difference. Not someday, 15 days.
Now the 2 passive skills, reading and listening. And we want to be upfront about something. These are genuinely the most accessible ones to work on because you can improve them without anyone watching, without pressure, and honestly, without it feeling like studying at all.
Let's start with listening.
The most important thing here is moving away from content that's made specifically for learners. Simplified English is useful at the beginning, but at the intermediate level, it actually holds you back because it doesn't reflect how people really speak. You need to start exposing yourself to real, unscripted English.
And the key word there is unscripted. Interviews, debates, documentaries, podcasts where people are actually having a conversation rather than reading from a teleprompter. That's where you hear hesitations, natural rhythm, contractions, connected speech, everything we've been talking about today.
A practical tip: pick a topic you're genuinely curious about and find a YouTube channel or podcast dedicated to it entirely in English. It doesn't matter if it's history, cooking, finance, true crime, sports analysis, whatever it is, when the topic holds your attention, you stop thinking about the fact that you're listening in another language. You're just listening, and that's exactly the state you want to be in.
Something else that helps enormously is varying the accents you expose yourself to. A lot of learners only listen to American English, which is fine, but then they struggle the moment they hear a British, Australian, or Irish speaker. The more variety you get, the more flexible your ear becomes. And that flexibility is what separates someone who understands English from someone who can actually function in it anywhere in the world.
Now, for reading, the first thing we want to say is don't underestimate it. A lot of people treat reading as the boring option, but it's actually one of the most powerful ways to absorb vocabulary in context. When you see a word used in a real sentence in a real article about something you actually care about, your brain retains it far better than if you'd found it in a vocabulary list.
Our advice is to find one or two sources you genuinely enjoy and make them part of your routine. It could be a newspaper, a newsletter, a blog, even social media accounts that post long-form content in English. The format matters less than the habit. 5 to 10 minutes of focused reading every day will do more for your vocabulary over 3 months than a weekend marathon once in a while.
And here's something practical for when you come across words you don't know. Don't stop to look up every single one. First, try to understand it from context. What does the sentence suggest it means? What would make sense there? That exercise alone, trying to infer meaning, is a skill that will serve you constantly in real conversations, where you obviously can't pause and search anything up.
And then, after you've finished reading, go back and look up the 2 or 3 words that felt most important, or that kept appearing. Write them down with the sentence they came from, not just the definition. That context is what makes the word stick.
With both skills, the underlying principle is the same: consistency over intensity. You don't need 2-hour sessions. You need 15 to 20 minutes a day, done regularly with content that's just slightly above your comfort zone. That gap between what's easy and what's just challenging enough, that's where the language actually gets absorbed.
Before we wrap up, we just want to say, if you made it to the end of this episode, that already says a lot about you. Not everyone does.
If anything we talked about today clicked for you, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. You probably know at least one person going through the same thing. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is a good time. Leaving a like also goes a long way in helping us reach more people who are on this same journey.
And we want to leave you with this. Learning a language is not a straight line. There will be days where it feels effortless and days where it feels completely pointless. Both are part of the process.
Don't give up when it gets frustrating. That frustration usually means you're right at the edge of something. Push through it, because what's on the other side is absolutely worth it.
Keep going. We'll see you in the next one.
Take care, everyone.